Anyway, today I saw this lady. It was so impressive. So, first of all, she did not have arms. She didn't have both arms, and so she was sitting on this pavement, and she had a flute, right? And then so she didn't have an arm, but like she had this microphone thing strapped to her shoulder, and so she did this really unique sound where she would play the flute with her feet. Now that sounds not flute. Sorry, man, what's the name of that thing? A hop, a hop. She'd play a hop with her feet, and then she had this thing where, so it was strapped to her shoulder, and so every time she would sing, she would do like this melody, like woo, it was sound like very Arabic, a very Arabic melody, and every time she did that, she would like almost like push her shoulder that way, and the microphone would go far from her, and then it would come very close, and then it would go very far, and it would come very close.
I will be right here.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Fabishmark podcast, or the FM podcast. That's what I'm gonna call it now. FM podcast, or I'll just say PFM, like a radio station, instead of saying Fabishmark podcast every single time. But I do hope you're doing well. It's another episode. I am buzzing. I'm buzzing because the Premier League is back. My team is doing well, and yeah, I couldn't have asked for more. But today, I want to talk about something that I found so interesting. But before I do that, I'm going to tell you a story about today. Today, I was downtown Nairobi. And Nairobi is becoming so big in the last 5 years that it's almost like what we would describe as the East Africa's New York. Or Africa's New York. I can't think of a bigger city. Maybe South Africa has some cities, but they have too much crime. But well, not like, I mean, some cities in South Africa have a lot of crime right now. The crime rates are very high, but Nairobi is really sprawling, if that's a word. With like, it's like buzzing. Like there's so many new restaurants. There's a lot of expats. There's a lot of like celebrities in East Africa moving here. So yeah, it's really fun. It's really cool. And now, if you want to know that a city is doing well, you'll start seeing people performing in the town squares and stuff. And we've started seeing a lot of that in Nairobi. So it tells you something about Nairobi. Anyway, today I saw this lady. It was so impressive. So first of all, she did not have arms. She didn't have both arms. And so she was sitting on this pavement, and she had a flute, right? And then so she didn't have an arm, but like she had this microphone thing strapped to her shoulder, and so she did this really unique sound where she would play the flute with her feet. Now that sounds not flute. Sorry, man, what's the name of that thing? A hop, a hop. She'd play a hop with her feet, and then she had this thing where, so it was strapped to her shoulder. And so every time she would sing, she would do like this melody, like woo, it was sound like very Arabic, a very Arabic melody. And every time she did that, she would like almost like push her shoulder that way, and the microphone would go far from her, and then it would come very close, and then it would go very far, and it would come very close. And so it created this like beautiful melody, and I just stood there and I was thinking, the world is such a beautiful place, and like she would do like, I don't know if you've ever seen those movies or TV shows where a group of Navy SEALs or American Army people invade some country in like the Middle East. And normally what happens is like, they land, and like you can like, there's like a the mosque prayer going on, and like there's a market, and there's so much happening, and then all of a sudden you see like the whoever the bad guys are, like riding in on pickups and like taking over, and now it's like a battle between the two of them. But then like there's always like this Arab music going on, like it's very instrumental and like very beautiful, and there's always like some sort of like chill vibe. That's what she was playing. So yeah, that was pretty fun. I really enjoyed that. So yeah, I was like, man, if she can do that, I mean, she inspires me. So yeah, this podcast is brought to you by that lady, because she inspired me to do a podcast. But what I want to talk about is called pathological optimism. And I'm just gonna look over here very shortly for the meaning. Hold on, let me pull my computer closer so I can know what I'm actually talking about. So pathological optimism. Now, I don't know the full meaning, but I heard someone say this and I was so fascinated by how they talked about it. So I was like, okay, let me just go and read about it and let me do some research about it, and I will know. I'll know what it's about. So here we go. So pathological optimism, okay, means it's where we believe that all things are possible for all of us, and the only thing that separates us from success is hard work. Which is so interesting, pathological optimism. We are so optimistic that anything is possible unless you don't work hard, which is a very crazy concept. And I know whoever wrote this or whoever thinks that is definitely from a Western world, because the reason I was going to talk about it there was, when people say that, if you work hard enough, you can achieve everything. I don't believe that. I feel like if you rephrase that to, if you work hard enough and if you have the right resources and you are surrounded by the right people at the right time, then you can make it. Because I think like from a Western perspective, and Western I mean like American and like European or whatever, it's very easy to say, you if you work hard, then like you already have the resources, or you have a way to acquire these resources. But think about a Kenyan kid. Okay, not Kenya. Let's think of a country that Kenya has like some opportunities. Okay, let's think about Malawi. Right, a kid is born in Malawi, a very tiny nation in Africa. And this kid aspires to be a pilot. Right now, this kid, their family is living off of like a farm, right? And they grow subsistence crops, subsistence crops, or subsistence crops, and they sell them the local market and make at least $3 a day, right? And that's what they use. Now, this kid goes to a school, which is a public school. He or she is not supported by any organization or like any funding or whatever. She just goes to school like any other student. And when asked in school that, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And this kid says, I want to be a pilot, right? And then you think, okay, oh man, like, and the teacher goes, yeah, if you can always achieve your dreams. And then this kid grows up to being like 18 or 19, and this kid thinks, okay, when am I going to be a pilot? Because I'm done with high school. I've got pretty normal grades, which is good in my country. Now I want to go be a pilot. And then the kid finds out, oh, in Malawi you don't have any pilot school, right? And then this kid really works hard to save money to be a pilot. And then in the process, he or she gets married, and so she has responsibility for the family, and so she's saving so much money to be a pilot, but like it's just draining him or her, and then at some point, like, whatever they've saved over 10 years versus what they even need to enroll you to a pilot school for 1 year, it's just unbelievable. It's just crazy. And there's no one around to help fund them. He or she writes letters to people and like keeps chasing this dream until they reach the age of like 40. Now, at that point, do you look back and say, yeah, this kid worked very hard and almost achieved their dream? Like, how do you phrase that? Because to me, I just don't believe that this kid had a chance to begin with. I don't. I just don't think like, and it's nobody's fault. Hold on. it's nobody's fault that this kid didn't have a chance. It just happened that that kid was born in a place where there's not a lot to look up to, and there's not a lot to work on. And so yeah, the whole idea of hard work makes us, achieve our dreams. I think it depends, like the context of where you are working hard really matters, and I think the thing with pathological optimism is so great in a place where you have the resources to help you reach your goal. But if you don't, then it's very hard to even be optimistic to begin with. And this spreads across a lot of things. I was speaking to someone the other day, and I asked them that suppose you were born in this is not religion. You were born in one side, and you were raised in a Christian family, and you did everything right, and you had a safe environment, and this is all you knew, and everything that you knew, the sum total of everything you knew was good, right? And you went to church every day, and you prayed every day, and you learned about kindness and goodness and service, right? And then there's another person who was born in an environment that did not have Christ, did not have peace, did not have love, did not have whatever, right? Now, they grow up and they live a life that is not pleasing to the Lord, and they live a life that is a bit, out there, and to them, that's what freedom is, right? They think they're free. They're finally free of their troubles. They can earn some money and they can live the life they want. And they go through, like, they abuse drugs and do all these things, and they party and do all these things. Now, my question was, do you think these people could switch to the other side, at like one that is born in a particularly awesome setting and one that is born in a very terrible setting? Could they find a way to like switch, and what happens at that point? And my observation is, I think most of the time, if all you know of the other side is your side is better than the other side, if you ever go to the other side, the chances are you're going to be extreme against your side. For example, a person who I know of a person who was born in, the good family and whatever, and then they got into drugs, and they became hardcore drug abusers, and they hated the life that they had. Like they were against everything that they grew up in. And then there's people who, they were raised in such a tough environment, they abused drugs and did all those things, and then they became Christian and they hated the life they had. So it's kind of crazy how both sides, like, unless you grow up like being very real with what both sides are, I think sometimes it's just interesting to see how somebody can swing, the pendulum swings to one side, and like it just affects everything. But yeah, like this optimism, pathological optimism thing, I think it goes everywhere in life, everywhere. And I was talking to my friend Ken the other day, and I was telling him about how much a little bit of resources affects how much you look at life. And I was talking to him about sports. We actually have a podcast coming up tomorrow on Friday. I'm looking forward to it. And I was talking to him, and I was telling him that, listen, it's very easy to complain about not being able to make it in a place that you have the chances. It's very hard to even start thinking about making it in a place where you cannot even see where to start, And so, I'm thinking in so many ways, right? When people say, yeah, you can achieve whatever you want if if you put enough work into it. And every time I hear that, like even we used to be taught that in school in Kenya, and I kept thinking, that is not true. I know it sounds so bad, but it's just not true. There's sometimes you can put as much hard work as you want, and it's the right thing, and you're passionate about it, and you're talented about it, but you're not going to make it. Not because you're not good enough, but just because the system, the way it's built, and the way the world works, you just are doomed. Like, your chances are very low. Unless, like, think about this. You can go and Google any African leader you can think of. Go and Google any African leader. There's high chances they studied in a country outside their country. Look for any president of any African country, uh, and then like just go to their Wikipedia and look through their history, and most of them, at least 80% of them, was somehow funded by missionaries to go and study somewhere else in another country, and then they came back and became leaders. Like if you look at a lot of these people, when you go to their Wikipedia and you check, there's always some breakthrough, right? There's always some kind of person who comes into their life and like guides them and funds whatever, like funds some sort of like education, like thing that gets them to where they go. But normal people, it just doesn't work like that. Look for doctors, look for lawyers in countries that are third world countries. Most of them, they always make it after some kind of intervention by either missionaries or some fund or some kind of scholarship. They just don't like work hard themselves. And then what do they do now? Now the interesting part is, what do they do after they become successful? Look at their kids. Look. Just Google the Kenyan president's kids. Look at where they went to school. Not in Kenya for sure. They went to school somewhere else because they believe that that is the only way to make it. And so, yeah, this thing of hard work, it doesn't work. And so I think whoever thinks of like this optimism thing, like sometimes I personally believe that good is only brought about by bad. And what I mean is, for you to know good, you have to be aware of bad. If bad did not exist, good would stop having meaning. If does that make sense? Like the word good. For you to be like that is good, it means there's something that has made it good and has put that quality of goodness into it, or else it will be bad. And so anytime you walk in life and you think, man, this car, what, look at a car, you're like, a car is good. What is the bad? The bad is the amount of time you take to get to where you're going. Look at food. Food is good. What is bad? Starving. Look at sleep is good. What is bad? Health problems. Anything you do, like I have this water bottle, right? This water bottle is good. Now, what is bad? What is the bad that created the problem that led to this water bottle being created? Probably dehydration or something. Like there's always something that leads to the creation of good. And so when I hear people being super optimistic all the time and happy and whatever, I always start questioning, like, does that actually exist? Because there's no way. Like I would trust somebody who was a little bit pessimistic and also optimistic, and not somebody who's always like 100% good. Like I don't think that exists. And I think now in this world of today, we are chasing that perfection, and we're chasing that idea of like a utopian world where like everything is perfect and everything is good. But then like I also believe that if everything in the world was good, we would lose our purpose. We as human beings would lose our purpose. I sat down the other day for like 6 hours, and I was just thinking, like, what is the purpose of human beings? Like what's the overall purpose? Like, and I know that I've said this before. I think it's to serve the Lord, and to bring beauty into His world, but also from a human perspective and from a human level, I think it is to do this dance with bad so that we find a purpose. I always wondered, like, why would we have bad in the world? And now I'm realizing that it's to give us purpose to chase the good. That like it's almost like we wake up every morning to work so that we don't fall into this pit of something that is bad. Okay? Like failure and pain and whatever. That's bad. So they drive us towards something that is good. And so it almost gave me a different idea of failure and suffering, in that it teaches us of what the other side is. Imagine if all your life you lived a good life, and you lived a life where you didn't have problems, you lived a life where you didn't suffer, you'd not be able to function like well, because in your head the idea of suffering doesn't exist, and so you would almost want to I'm thinking of think of a human being who I think we should the world should one day do like a social test, right? Somebody who is born in an environment that is devoid of any bad, completely good. Like they grow up in a nice family. They, everything is done for them, and they don't have to do anything, and they live a comfortable life. I think that person will get bored very quickly, and they will find something to give them more dopamine hits and to make them feel alive. Whereas somebody who's born through suffering really gets to enjoy the moments when they actually like get to experience good stuff. And so now as a person I'm thinking the joy is not in achieving the goal, the joy is in the process of evading the bad and trying to reach the good. And I know that's a very hard concept, but like I almost feel like like think about this, like human beings live on planet earth for maximum of 100 years, and that's a stretch. Most people don't even reach 70, right? So okay, let's just do like I don't know what the average lifespan in the world is. Average lifespan in the world is 72 years, okay? 72.27 years. I don't even know if what the 27 is, but imagine you get to only live for 72 years, right? You spend a maximum of 22 years from when you're born to when you graduate college. Then you enter the workforce, and then you work until you're 60. So that means you only have 12 years. And I almost feel like within those 12 years, you work that hard to retire, because that's when like you've achieved it, right? But then when you achieve it, you almost feel like, why did like I almost always imagine like once you retire you almost lose purpose, and that's why you start like a human being starts degrading, like like slowly falling off, because the purpose to keep going is what makes you like alive, and then once you feel like your purpose is done and the society feels like your purpose is done, you almost mentally start feeling like, yeah, maybe it's time for me to start wrapping up. Yeah, because I have somewhere else to go, and so that's the same thing. Like I'm always wondering, like, okay, if you think about like the worst people on planet are like dictators and like killers and all these terrible people who do this for like money, and they want to be so rich and they keep chasing money and wealth, right? Most of them die and leave that money behind. Now you start thinking, why would you do all these things and keep getting more and more money when you can't spend it in your lifetime? Probably you don't even have kids. And I'm like, I ask myself, like, you think of these private contractors who work for the government, and like they're lobbyists, and like they make so much money, and they're so dedicated to their work that they don't even want to have kids. And then you think, okay, now you've made like billions of dollars. Like let's say your net worth is like $20 billion, right? And you have like one kid who probably doesn't really care anyway. Then you die. Now my question is, what is the purpose of making $20 billion if you're not going to be able to spend it through your lifetime? And I came to realize that most people, it reaches a point where the making of the money and the amount of the money they have doesn't really matter. They get satisfaction from the struggle that they go through to feel that little good in life as they work. So it just it's almost like running on a treadmill. The whole idea is when you run on a treadmill, right? You are trying to work towards something. You're trying to achieve a goal, and in achieving this goal, you probably become more fit, and you probably become you better health, better mindset, and all these things. And so it means while you're running, there's the byproduct, which is sweat. And I feel like for some people, the money that they make is a byproduct, which is it's just they sweat it off. And so that is kind of like what in the end is their net worth. But I feel like now, after thinking about it, I feel like people's net worths should be the amount of work they did, or like the amount of good they put out in the world. And there's an old man who I knew in 2019. No, sorry, 2020. He was a Maasai man, and he once told me that I asked him like, what is success, right? And he told me that to him, his definition of success was success is the sum total of how much positivity you brought to humanity. And I was like, interesting. And he was actually not like a very wealthy person. And I kept thinking, that is very interesting. Like once you're done on this earth, the impact you leave behind, the positive impact you leave behind, or negative, we're not judging. The impact you leave behind is what should be considered your success. What did you succeed in doing? How did you succeed in changing somebody's life? How did you succeed in making somebody feel better? I think those kind of things should be our net worth. Like somebody's net worth should be they influenced people to always like keep going. They influenced people to be better. They influenced people to be happy. They brought so much happiness. They brought so much relief. Your net worth should be 60 years worth of relief to humanity, 60 years worth of happiness to humanity, 60 years worth of bringing people to the Lord to humanity. That should be your net worth, you know. But yeah, I think like yeah. So I think at the end of the day, what I wanted to talk about, I don't even know what I want to talk about. Pathological optimism. Does it work? Yes. Does it work everywhere? No. Does it mean that you can always still make it? No, not everywhere. In some places, yes, you are always bound to make it, no matter what. Or the system will save you anyway. The government will help you. In some places, you're doomed. And that's just the truth. That's just the painful truth. So yeah, does pathological optimism work? Sometimes. Is it great? Of course. Is it a good slogan to make people always work hard? For sure. But does it mean that every kid needs to get it? No. Some kids are just, it's almost like stressing. It's so stressful to think about always achieving a dream when you know very well that your likelihood of making it is like 0 point something percent. And that brings me to the one thing I want to talk to you about, my podcast. Now, this is gonna okay. I am selfishly asking you to subscribe. Why? Because I've noticed that if you look at the top 10 podcasts in the world, or top 100, most of them are not even from Africa. We don't even have a podcast in Africa that is good enough. And if there is some, all they talk about is things that are they talk about things that are not really like important, you know. And so I think it's time for us to at least have something, a podcast that actually makes it and actually brings change. I want to be that podcast. Selfishly, I do want to be that podcast. So I'm asking you to please subscribe. Yeah, I cannot think of one podcast from the entire continent of Africa that has actually changed people and is known. If there is, very few. Very few. Think about anything, music, movie, and nothing. We don't have anything. I think it's about time that we do something. So yeah, please hit the subscribe button. My podcast has a 1% chance of success. At least one. Not like, you know, 0 or something, because with the people and the friends I have, you people who are going to subscribe, I've found a way to make it. You know, I've found a way to at least try and reach the mountain, whatever they call it. But some people don't. So I want to show people that this is how we start making sure that pathological optimism becomes a thing in Africa too. But yeah, I have 1% chance of success, and I think that's all we need really. Who needs 90? 90 is so much. Just one. If there's one, if there was 0, that would be tough. I have 1% chance of success, and yeah, that's all I need. So yeah, I think that's it. It's a 29 minute episode, and that's great. I love that. I don't want to bore you. You have some other things to do, And yeah, from your favorite podcaster, I want to say have a great night, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Oh, don't also forget to subscribe.